My fork hovered halfway to my mouth, loaded with sweet potato casserole, when my father's voice cut through Thanksgiving dinner like a blade. "You're nothing but a leech. It's time for you to leave this house." The words didn't sound real. Around me, silence fell. So complete I could hear the antique clock ticking from the living room, the same clock I'd paid to repair last month. Across the table, my mother stared at her plate, rearranging green beans she hadn't touched. My 17-year-old sister Lily froze, her eyes fixed on her half-empty glass of water. I had spent the entire morning cooking. I basted the turkey, made the pies, mashed the potatoes while they sat in the living room watching football. 20 minutes ago, I had shared the news of my promotion. Now, as steam rose from the food I'd prepared, my father was throwing me out. The irony was unbearable. My name was on every single bill in this house. The electricity, the water, the groceries, even my mother's health insurance. When she lost her job 3 months ago, I stepped in without hesitation. The bills piled up faster than excuses, and Frank's part-time work barely covered the mortgage. So I paid for everything. And the more I paid, the smaller he became. His authority, once absolute, was now a ghost of itself. He had always been the man in charge, until his signature stopped meaning anything. Now his anger felt like a desperate attempt to reclaim relevance. I kept eating. Slowly. He waited for me to cry, to fight back, to prove he'd still gotten to me. I didn't. "Did you hear what I said?" His voice rose. "You need to be out by the weekend." I set my fork down and said calmly, "I understand perfectly." The 3 words hung in the air like smoke. My mother finally spoke, but not to defend me. "Blair, you'll still pay for my insurance this month, right? I have that appointment on Tuesday." And there it was, the full picture. Not family, just a resource. Not daughter, just a wallet. I stood, collected my plate, and walked to the kitchen. My mind cataloged every item in that house that bore my name. The refrigerator I bought, the Wi-Fi plan I paid for, the car insurance, the groceries. As I rinsed my plate, I looked through the window at my car parked outside. The only thing I owned outright. At least I'd still have that when I left. It was after midnight when I found the bank statements. I'd been packing for hours, folding clothes into suitcases, trying not to fall apart. In my desk drawer, under utility bills, I found something strange, a stack of paper bank statements with my father's name. I hadn't seen paper statements in months. We'd switched to electronic. The balance grew each month while my own savings bled out. $4,000 in July, $5,000 in August, almost $7,000 in November. And then I found the brochure, a fishing boat. His handwriting scrawled across the margin. Down payment $5,500. Scheduled delivery after Thanksgiving. My breath caught. They'd waited until I paid every bill before kicking me out. My hands shook as I dropped onto the edge of the bed. I was the fool funding my own eviction. A soft knock broke my trance. Lily slipped in, eyes wide. "You're really leaving?" she whispered. I nodded. "Mom said they need your room for storage. Now that Dad's buying that boat." The words hit like a physical blow. "Boat?" I repeated. She nodded. "I heard them planning it weeks ago." "You knew?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I was scared to tell you. Dad said anyone who warned you would be next. I wanted to be angry, but how could I? She was still a kid, trapped in the same manipulative world I was finally escaping." "There's more," she said, lowering her voice. "Those medical appointments Mom's been having, the ones you've been paying for, they're not checkups." She got lip fillers. I stared at her, the room spinning. I'd been skipping meals to pay for her cosmetic procedures. I opened my banking app. $763 left. 3 months ago, I had $9,000. If I had stayed another month, I would have had nothing. By sunrise, I had packed everything I could fit in my car. 4 boxes, 2 suitcases. That was it. While they were at church, I left. By lunchtime, I was sitting on my friend Drew's couch, staring at the pile that used to be my life. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed with texts from relatives, all echoing my father's story. Blair abandoned her family when they needed her most. He was fast. He'd always been fast. But this time, I was faster. I called every company whose bills were under my name, utilities, internet, insurance, and removed myself from each. By evening, their lights would go out. When Drew came home, she looked at me sorting receipts into piles. "Operation Financial Freedom?" she asked. "Almost done," I said. 5 days later, my phone lit up again. "Mom, what have you done?" she screamed. "The power's out, the internet's down, my insurance was declined." I took a slow breath. I stopped paying for things that weren't my responsibility. You can't just leave us like this. We're your family. Family doesn't call family a leech. I ended the call. That evening, Drew helped me set up fraud alerts. My bank app showed multiple login attempts from my parents' address. And then came the pounding on the door. "Blair," my father's voice thundered, "open this door right now." Drew motioned for me to stay back, but I already knew this was coming. The pounding grew louder. He shouted about betrayal, about respect, about how I destroyed his family. Then he kicked the door. The wood cracked. I called 911. By the time the police arrived, he was still yelling about how I was ruining his life. They handcuffed him on the spot. For the first time, he was the one explaining himself to authority. When the officer asked if I wanted to press charges, I said yes, not out of revenge, out of survival. 2 days later, my mother pawned my laptop and camera, but I had receipts, serial numbers, purchase dates. The police recovered both. They added theft to her record. Aunt Sarah called that evening. "Blair, honey, we had no idea things were so bad. The story was spreading. The neighbors who once pitied my parents were starting to whisper the truth." That night, as Max installed a small security camera by the door, I realized I didn't feel scared anymore. I felt safe. The next morning, my mom called again. "If you drop the charges, you can come home. We'll let you stay. We'll forgive you." The word forgive made me laugh. I told her I had receipts, bank transfers, messages, proof of everything. Then I asked if she wanted me to send it to the court. She hung up. Officer Williams accompanied me to the house 2 days later so I could collect my things. Through the window, I saw curtains twitch. The same neighbors who once judged me now watched in silence. Inside, Mom tried to argue. "You can't just take everything, Blair. It belongs to the family." I handed the officer my folder. "She bought all of this," the officer said. "It's hers." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. By the time the car was packed, the silence was complete. As I locked the door one final time, another engine pulled into the driveway. My spare car, my father behind the wheel. He stepped out, keys in hand, smug. "We need to talk about what you owe us before you take this." I showed the officer my registration and title. The color drained from his face as she ordered him to hand over the keys. For the first time, he looked small. "Come near me or my property again," I said, "and I'll file for a restraining order." Then I drove away. 3 months later, my apartment felt like peace made real. Every bill in my name, every choice mine alone. Lily called often. She'd started college, found scholarships, built her own rhythm. "You sound happy," I told her. "I am," she said. "You taught me that surviving doesn't mean staying." That Thanksgiving, I cooked again, this time for people who actually thanked me. Drew and Max came over, and Lily too. The table was smaller, the laughter louder. Halfway through dinner, Lily raised her glass. "To found family and boundaries worth keeping." I smiled. It wasn't revenge filling me that night. It was freedom. Months later, an envelope arrived. Inside was my parents' handwriting. "We're sorry things went so far. The house is gone. Maybe it's time to start over. Family is still family." I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Forgiveness isn't an invitation. It's closure you give yourself when you stop needing the apology to be perfect. Sometimes justice is quiet. It looks like a woman paying her own bills and sleeping in peace. It looks like freedom that doesn't need anyone's permission. So when people call you selfish for walking away from those who drained you, remember this. They only call it selfish when your boundaries stop serving them. If you were standing in that dining room, your worth measured only by what you could provide, and the people you loved most turned on you the moment you said enough. What would you do?